simply starting this race. Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnicoat, and this Lexus Vasser Sullivan group are now champions in GTD Pro. Fantastic effort.
23 champ.
Great to see you.
Good to have you in the house.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Awesome to be here.
Yep. We've even got the car.
Yeah, this one's a beauty. Great win, that one. One of my better days, and can't wait to get back to that.
Well, for sure. Well, have a seat and let's talk comeback and the old days and the future.
Yep, sounds good.
Well, it's not only great to have, Ben Barnicoat in our studio, but he's going to be back behind the wheel of that Lexus at Watkins Glen. Now, calendar-wise, it's been 5 months since the Rolex 24 Daytona. But what happened with, your injury? Because we've missed you at the track and you were out training, and it's something that we see a lot with athletes these days where, something just out of the norm happens. So what happened to Ben Barnicoat?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's been a while, so I'm really looking forward to getting back on track this weekend at the Glen. Long time since Daytona, and yeah, what happened was I was out here, going through my normal routine, getting ready for a race. Sebring was coming up, so got to the States on like the Wednesday, the week before the race. Did our usual simulator day on the Friday. Then comes the weekend, and I was actually feeling a little under the weather, so I was like, oh well. We train at the Toyota Performance Center up in Mooresville, and the golden rule is if you're under the weather, don't go in. So I was like, okay, I'll go out on my mountain bike, get some fresh air, and keep the germs away from everyone. And yeah, it bit me pretty hard. Had a good ride on the Saturday. Sunday, I thought, oh, let's go try somewhere new and venture out a little. And wasn't the smartest idea, and just a bit of a misjudgment on my mountain bike, and had an accident, and the rest is history. I was missing for a few months, but yeah, super excited to be back with the Vasser Sullivan Lexus racing team this week.
Well, you look at it and you hear it so quite often. I mean, at Daytona, one of the Mustangs had an issue very similar. Skiing, we've heard different drivers skiing. You can't live your life in bubble wrap.
No, absolutely not. It's funny, actually, the Mustang driver is another guy called Ben, and from England, so I guess it's not a good year for the Bens. But yeah, I mean, look, I've had an excellent life to this point, and I've never, especially the last few years, I feel like I've done a good job of living my life to the fullest, and I guess this is just one of those. I've never, the bubble wrap's been off, and I've just been enjoying myself, and yeah, it kind of caught up with me this time, and I'll probably have a bit of a different view for the rest of my career until my driving days are done from now. You with a bit of time away and time to reflect, it allows you to see what you have in your hands, and especially right now in what a great position I'm in with Lexus and Vasser Sullivan. It definitely taught me not to take it for granted. Not that I did, but I'm definitely gonna be a bit more steady and make sure I'm at every race from now on.
So you were watching the races on television, the broadcast, and so often a driver will say, look, I was injured, I sat up on top of the pit box, or I watched it from home, and it allowed me a completely different opportunity to get a perspective that I hadn't seen before because I was so immersed in it. Do you feel like it might make you more of a complete driver just because you're able to see the bigger picture?
Being completely truthful, it was actually very hard for me to watch every race. I think the only one that I was able to watch lights to flag was Detroit. But apart from that, Sebring wasn't too bad because obviously I was at quite a low point then, and there was just zero possibility of me being in the car. But the ones from there, when I started to feel a bit better, I was quite, being honest, I was disappointed and a little down in myself for letting everyone down, all the team. At the end of the day, I was only training and trying to make myself better for the race, which kind of took me away from it. But it kind of weighed heavy on my shoulders. I did find it hard. I was very low at some points, but it also does allow you to take that seat back and look. For me, being at the track, I think that would have been a bit too hard. That's why I stayed home, and I felt that was the best thing for me mentally. And as I just touched on, it really allowed me to kind of see what an awesome team we have at Vasser Sullivan, what a great job they do. And like I said, this winter I had already tried to kind of take that bit of a step back and look in and go, what can I do better? We came off the championship in 23, amazing year. Then 24 was a little bit bumpy. So, I kind of had a good hard look at myself, and I'd already taken a few steps to what I felt to be a better driver, and put those into practice at Daytona. Okay, we didn't have a great Daytona, but, I felt like I was ready for the year. And then having this, let's say, forced break, it allowed me to kind of really look at those points and say, yeah, like this is, steps that I can take, and let's really, not that I wasn't making the most of it, but like I said, I'm just come back with bigger eyes and really going to make the most of the situation I'm in now.
When you're being reflective like that and looking at 2025, what was the biggest thing that you wanted to try to check off that you might approach it differently or might improve yourself in a certain area?
I think it was just evaluating every situation on every lap, every day. I think in 2023, when you're trying so hard to get your first championship, that the adrenaline's a bit higher. You're just a bit more on edge, which kind of forces you into that zone. And when you are champion, and you're coming back and you feel like you've done it, I think we maybe just relaxed a little. No, we all worked very hard. That there's not any point in me here that's not saying we let up. The team pushed hard. They pushed hard to give us the best performance. But looking at myself, there were a couple of times where I felt like, I could have maybe done this better, I could have done that better, and I was very harsh on myself on the off season to put that into place. And I think now taking that bit of a step away has just reinforced that as such.
So 23 was a magical year. It seemed like you guys were never off the podium.
Yeah.
You guys owned a spot on there. When you go back to 22, when you joined the team, Jack had his issue with a dirt bike, not only a back issue like you, also he had an ankle issue. So they changed things up on his return after missing a couple races, and basically he would, qualify and start so he wouldn't have to jump off the wall. As far as your program for Watkins Glen, a little bit different because you don't have the ankle. Different insert, anything different inside the race car to kind of help with comfort level at any?
Yeah, I mean, we made a new insert, so we've had a bit of a rough year on inserts, actually. We started the year, the plan was for obviously driving this year with Aaron Telitz. We're quite different in height, but obviously in some of these races like Detroit and stuff, driver change is so important. We were like, okay, let's try and make a seat work for both of us. And obviously me being taller, I was the one who kind of had a bigger compromise. And then after the injury, we had to make a new insert, so it's pretty spot on for me now. Just, obviously need to reduce all the risks we can. So it does mean that Aaron's going to have to use an insert again, which is something that may, add a little bit of time. But aside from that, honestly, I'm golden. I've been out for quite a long time. And when Jack came back, as you said, he was still probably not 100%, especially with his foot. He couldn't jump off the wall. Whereas, we're very confident that I'm at 100%. All the driver routine and stuff is going to stay the same in terms of driver changes. Haven't had to mix anything up, so that's good, and I'm really excited about it. It's just at this point it's been a long time since I've driven and raced, so it's just kind of getting me back up to speed, right? That's just knocking that rust off and getting back car fit and going for it. But excited for the challenge.
So you've tested at the Glen, you've spent some time in the simulator. Is Watkins Glen the perfect place, looking at everything that you've gone through, for the comeback, or will it be a little bit more challenging?
Well, I think we looked at it saying, it's a great place to come back, super smooth, not too many bumps. And then I was lucky enough to drive there a couple of weeks ago to kind of knock the rust off, and you realize, man, this is probably the fastest corner speed average on the track. So it felt pretty physical, and those bus stop curbs don't lie, they're pretty big. So I think you could always pick reasons for and against any track to be, the perfect place to come back, but it was the right time for me. The doctor was, I think personally, I probably could have come back a bit earlier, but the doctors had the rein on me a little bit. And I'm like 100% fully ready to go. There's zero doubt about it. I'm probably as fit as I've ever been in many ways, because I've never spent so much time in the gym as I have the last 3 months. But I'm ready to go. And Watkins Glen's an awesome race. Everyone loves it. We had such a good time there in 2023 with the double win, and really hoping to go back and replicate that this week.
You mentioned the doctors. When you look at everything that TRD brings to the table, and you saw it with Jack's injury and with others in different forms of racing that are Toyota family drivers, did it amaze you even more, though, just the expertise? Because I've used them personally. We were up in Wisconsin. My daughter had a concussion, so we were up there going through the whole process. But their whole medical group is just amazing. And it just gives you another example of why they're so successful in so many forms of racing.
Yeah, listen, it's I couldn't have put it any better myself. What happened to me, you know, it wasn't in the race car. Okay, yeah, I was trying to get myself better to be in the race car for them, but you know, they couldn't have done anything extra for me. That the entire group they've got there, you know, the strength coaches, Caitlin Quinn and my strength coach Wayne Newman have been fantastic. The Ortho Carolina physical therapist Tammy Dersham, as you know, she was actually the first person who got to me in the hospital after my accident. A couple of days after surgery, I was right back with her, you know, starting my physio and rehab out of this thing. So, you know, she's been absolutely incredible. You know, Bill Heisel as well, obviously very well known in the NASCAR world, maybe not quite so much in IMSA, but, you know, those guys have worked really, really hard for me and left absolutely no stone unturned. And not only am I grateful for that, for getting me back in the race car, but, you know, now I'm fully recovered and I'm good to go for the rest of my life again. And, you know, taking racing aside from that, I'm extremely grateful that I'm good to go just in a normal way of life as well as racing.
So you talk about the Toyota family, you talk about the Vasser Sullivan family, and it blends together. But the one thing between Jimmy and Sully that they've told me several times is that their team, it's not just 2 cars and employees, it's 2 cars basically worked on by family members.
Yeah.
And that culture was very important to them from everything that they've seen through all their years of racing. Are you surprised really at how much this group has bonded? Because I see pictures of your field trips, whether it's to go see a sprint car race, you're going to the Supercross, you're going to the Mouse House, you know, Disney, and it's just a special group.
Yeah, it's super special, you know, and I think when you win and achieve success in a group like that, it just makes it that bit better. And ever since I joined the team, of course, Jimmy and Sully, they really instilled that family vibe upon us. But I think now actually it kind of probably comes from the ground up. We're always Jimmy and Sully have been great at organizing things for us like Supercross and these other trips. But I think now just on a, you know, day-to-day basis, we organize to get to like soccer games together, baseball, you know, we do everything together. And, you know, that's kind of, you know, we'll just get on so well, you know, like I'll text the mechanics like, hey, you know, you want to do this weekend? And, so, you know, because we all get along so well, we always do it and we always go out. And I think that just makes them, because we're all so close, we get on so well, that makes them want to go the extra mile for you. They want to work that extra hour in the shop to make sure the car is absolutely perfect. And I don't think you can buy that. I think you have to grow it and it has to be there. And, another example of that, our chief mechanic, crew chief, Travis Morgan, when the day I had my accident, I was supposed to go and watch him playing hockey, because that's what he does when we're not at the track. He's a goalkeeper. I don't know if you call it a goalkeeper or not, but
he's a goalie, yep.
Yeah, that's what he does in hockey. And I was like, you know, I've never been. I was like, well, I'll come and watch you. And obviously I had the fall on my bike. I texted him like, hey, but I'm not going to make it. And then a couple of hours later, obviously I was in the hospital. But look, he was Tammy was the first one that got to me. Travis got there at like 6 p.m. He was there with me until kind of like midnight and back at 7 a.m. the next morning. And he was right by my side until my dad and my girlfriend were able to make it from England. And again, that just shows you what a family we are. You know, he was there for me when I needed him the most, not as my mechanic, but as someone just to be there for me. And yeah, it shows what a great group of people we've got.
And that made it even tougher, not being able to go to the track, because you're missing, you know, the fraternity, so to speak, that you guys all have.
Yeah, and you know, like going back to the track, it's hard to put one thing, what am I looking forward to the most, because there's obviously the driving and the racing, which is awesome, but it's kind of like having that camaraderie and that togetherness and going out to battle for these big, huge race wins with your family. You know, there's no feeling quite like that, and it's quite a hard one to explain, being honest. But yeah, excited to be back with them, and you know, kind of feeling back where I belong rather than being useless from my couch at home.
So how did the whole opportunity present itself with Vasser Sullivan Lexus? Do you remember the phone call, the first phone call, and then how it transpired?
I remember it super clear. So I was before I raced for Lexus, I was a driver at McLaren, and listen, I had a great time at McLaren. They did a lot for me. They gave me every opportunity they could, in all honesty. But I kind of wanted more, and racing in the States is something that I'd wanted to do. I really wanted to come and join IMSA. It was just about getting the opportunity, and I was in a contract year at McLaren. I've been kind of searching for a few things, and I had some good offers, one stay at McLaren and a couple elsewhere, and there just wasn't the kind of one that I wanted there on the table. And I've been kind of pushing McLaren and delaying that a little bit to try and find what I wanted. And they'd said, right, you've got 2 weeks. And I was like, oh man, like
Now the pressure is really coming down on you.
And then this is how it went. Jack's manager, who I knew a little bit, he rang me and was like, hey, Lex is looking for another pro driver. Is it something you'd be interested in? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, all right, well, I'm not really sure on the details. I'll let them know. And then next day, or maybe even a couple of hours later, Jack rings me, and it's a funny story with Jack. So we're both English, both very similar backgrounds. We live like 45 minutes an hour away from each other in the UK, and I never spoke to him. Knew obviously who he was and what he'd achieved, but never spoke to him. He rings me like, yeah, look, this is a deal. They're looking to go pro in next year, and we're kind of looking for someone. You know, my manager Chris said you're interested. I was like, yeah, I've not got a contract for next year at the minute. I'd be very keen. And then next phone call, Steve Hallam, and he's like, right, well, what do you want to kind of, spoke to him a little bit, got to know him a little, sent him everything I could to say like, hey, I'm the guy for the job. And he's like, well, what do you want? And the deal was done super quick. Like I said, I had a 2-week window, and that was it. It got done, and there's been no turning back. I remember at the time thinking, oh, is it the right thing to do? I don't know. I was very safe where I was at McLaren. Kind of, I wouldn't say I took a leap, but there was obviously a lot of unknowns to joining the team, and but yeah, since doing it, not looked back one bit. Loved every second of it. They're an awesome team. Everyone at Lexus and Vasser Sullivan's been, given me so much success, if anything, right? All you want to do in racing is go racing with a good group of guys and have some cool stuff on your CV afterwards, and certainly ticked a lot of those boxes.
See, I love Steve Hallam because he and I are both Jimmy Clark fans.
Yeah.
And although Jimmy Clark wasn't really alive very long when I was born, but just that's who I gravitated to. And then, you pick up different Ferrari drivers, down the road. But for you, did your whole passion with racing start with your parents having F1 parties?
Yeah. Well, I think I really got my first passion from driving was my dad was a construction worker. So he had his very small business, with small plant hire, diggers, machinery, that kind of stuff. So I always had this like, if anything that had an engine, it started and it moved in some way, shape or form. I was pretty obsessed with it. So it started there. Then I had a little quad bike, 4-wheel quad bike. Turns out I'm a lot better on 4 wheels than 2. Should have got that sign from being a kid. So I had a quad bike. We had a small bit of land back at home, so I used to, drive my quad bike around there. And then, yeah, like you said, it was from a young age. A lot of my parents, family, friends were big Formula One fans. So we'd kind of take it in terms of having these F1 kind of host parties. Everyone would split it up on a different way so you can go somewhere else. And when everyone used to come to ours, my dad used to let the grass grow a little high in this field, and he'd cut a track out, and then we'd all go and race around it. So that was my first memories of racing, like, racing around that grass field with, there's a quad bike. We had 2 of these little grass.
So you were out in the country, so to speak.
Yeah, out in the country in the UK. And I think we got like a 4-acre plot, a little bit less than that. So you could get a decent sized track in there. And, I'd be racing all my dad's friends, and I'd be in these grass carts, like hitting them and moving them out of the way. And I just loved racing from that point. And then how I really got the bug was went on a family holiday, went rental go-karting, loved it, came back home, looked it up online, went again, and the rest is history. And then got that first red go-kart that you got the picture of, bought that the very day that we went go-karting up locally to us. We met a guy there who had his own kart, and he was like, hey, yeah, like this is what you'd call a professional go-kart, and there's a place just down the road you can go and buy one. And went in there with my mum and dad, got the red one because I wanted it to be like Michael Schumacher's. There's a much faster green one just next to it, but I was a little kid and adamant I wanted the red one, and that was it. Away we went.
So your mom, she was good on everything from the get-go, or was she a little bit apprehensive of, I don't know about this?
Yeah, well, mum's a mum's, right? She loves me to bits, super, super supportive, but I think she'd be probably rather me just sit at home and not live the lifestyle I live. I definitely scared her to death a few times, especially with this accident I've just had, and she's already said she's not looking forward to my first few races back, worrying about me. But listen, of course, she was very worried about me, right? What we do is very high speed and always a chance of getting hurt and getting injured. So, she worries about me, but she's an incredibly supportive mom, and her and my dad have had me every step of the way. And I think everyone, a lot of racing drivers, we can all say that they made huge sacrifice, but, looking back at it, and especially now that I've got a bit of an older age, you really do realize the sacrifices they made for me to go racing. And we didn't like I said, we went rental karting on that family holiday when I was 7 years old. And then, to be honest, I haven't really been on a family holiday since, because from the age of 8 to 13, every penny they had was in my racing, and family holiday being taken away from them was one of those sacrifices they made for me to go karting. And I just look back at that, and it makes me even more proud to be where I am, be racing for Lexus, achieving what I am, not only for myself but for them and the sacrifice they made.
Because when you're in the middle of all that and you're a little kid, you don't know what goes on.
No idea.
Outside the little circle. You don't know about the bills. You don't know about, because they don't want to let you in on the stress that goes along with it financially.
Yeah. Well, you're a kid as well, right? You just have no idea about that. And then you kind of hit that age of 18 to 20 probably, and you really understand what kind of like £100,000 of dollars is. And, I really do look back at it and go, wow, they gave me everything they had and took a chance on me. And especially my dad, my dad definitely probably spent a little more than he should. You know how it is in racing. There was a couple of go-kart engines in there that my mum didn't know about for sure.
Well, she doesn't know, doesn't hurt her.
Yeah, sorry, Mum, just gonna find out now. But they went all in on me, and that's one of, on that, I'm really, really close to my dad. And as I've got older and I realized what he did for me and the belief he had in me as well, because there's a few points, I look back over my career and you could have gone like, yeah, let's stop here. It's not quite going to plan, but he just, he believed that I had a talent and kept pushing and and it paid off, and all that sacrifice, and and I get to where I am in my career now, right? And I just kind of take off and I'm doing my thing, and my dad's still back home. So actually having this time out, he was with me for my first 6 weeks of the injury. He was like kind of my carer, looking after me, and you know what? It was awesome to get that time with him. I can't remember the last time I spent 6 full weeks every day, every night with my dad, and loved every second. At the end, when I'm kind of getting a bit there, and I'm like, "Don't worry, Dad, I've got this," and he's trying to help me every step of the way. But even now, right? Obviously, what happened to me was terrible. Wish it on nobody. But looking at the good that came from it, one thing is realizing how lucky I am to be with the Vasser Sullivan Lexus team, and one thing I look at was getting to spend a lot of quality time with my dad again, because I'm about to pick back up my racing, and I'll be on the road as much as I can be.
When you talk to, whether it's Nick Tandy, Jan Halen was talking about how he and Jensen Button were roommates, and they'd have all kinds of van rides together going to different go-kart races. When you look at the competitors that were around you, the same guys in different series all across the globe.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely think I came up in, certainly this current era, I was so lucky that when I was racing in go-karts, I was in an incredible crop of talent. My teammate was Charles Leclerc for my last 2 years of go-karting, full-time at least in Europe. Had an incredible friendship with him. We used to share rooms together and get up to all kinds of stuff that definitely can't say on a camera. And he was one of my best mates. And then we both moved into open wheel cars, Formula Renault, the following year, 2014. And we're battling out, had a bit of a crash. It's not a crash, but I ran him wide at Spa, and he didn't like that. And then boom, your kind of friendship's gone, because I biffed him out the way for my first podium. I don't regret it, but we're not.
Well, the end justified the means, and
yeah, exactly.
It's in the mirror.
Yeah, so he's won, and then Verstappen and George Russell. Actually, me and him started go karting within tell you that story about me buying my first go-kart. Sure enough, when I get testing 2 or 3 weeks later, George Russell's just starting at the exact same track as me, and I race George every year, every week, pretty much in and out for the first probably 6-7 years of go-kart. And then we were, again, talking about friends and falling out, we were best friends, because we kind of started together from probably the age of 8 to 10. And then there's this big race in the UK called the British Grand Prix, and it's quite sentimental. It's a one-off race, winner takes all deal. Last 10 years old, last lap of that race, we had a coming together, and that was it. I didn't talk to him until I was 15. And then we became really good friends again and was teammates in Formula 3. So, I was very lucky. And another one, Nicholas Nielsen, outright Le Mans winner, always. Nicholas is a great guy. He was someone who was checking in on me a lot through this time. So, incredible talent, receiving IMSA and LMP2, outright Le Mans winner. I was very lucky that I came through such a good crop. And, obviously I'm not to blow my own trumpet, but I'm confident in my own ability. And I think it's because I grew up around people like that. So I see myself as lucky, to be honest, that I came up in the era that I did. And of course you can look at that in some ways, could be racing in Formula 1, could be IndyCar, Palou was in that same era. But at the same time, I love where I am. Love racing with Lexus. IMSA's an awesome place to be, and very proud to be here.
Well, you look at that talent crop. I mean, they made you better, but you also made them better.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I can, remember a lot of stories where I was going toe to toe to me and Max had a crash once, and his dad wanted to fight my dad in an A. Like,
really? They wanted to get into a fight?
Yeah. Well, I think it was more, obviously Yoss is a bit of a fiery character, right? So he was probably the one going for my dad a bit more. And I remember it pretty well. I was like, oh, Dad, you don't want to mess with him, And he was like, oh, don't worry, I've got it. I was like, oh, I don't think so. But yeah, that's Yoss. There's a million stories about him,
We had Russell Ward on, and he was talking about how until he won a championship, I said to him one day, why don't you have a really, flashy helmet, matches the scheme of the car or your brand identity, because that's a driver's identity always is their helmet and their paint design. And he goes, it's just carbon until I win a championship. He goes, when I win a championship, then I feel like I've earned the right to paint my helmet. And when you first started out, everybody gets the white helmet, stands out 5 miles away. But when you're racing go-karts and there's all these little kids, did your dad put like a stripe or something on the helmet so he could see it at some point?
Yeah, so kind of to Russell's story, I started with a white helmet, as we all do. And same deal, my dad's like, okay, when you win your first big race, I'll get your helmet painted for you. So, and that's your motivation then, right? Like, got to win a big race. And you win all these club races and stuff like that. And he's like, no, it's not enough. It's not.
Because you're seeing these other kids that have some really pretty sick helmets.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like, look, I'm racing against George Russell and these kids. And Field, I remember he had a really nice helmet. And you're like, oh, I want to be one of the cool guys like them. And Dad's like, no, you got to win something big. And then I won the British Open Championship, again, another one-off race. And I'm like, oh, do I get the helmet now? And he's like, yeah, okay, we'll get it. And then another 6-7 months went by. I didn't get this helmet. And actually, I came second in the British Championship that same year. And there's a prize for coming second in the championship. The championship organizer was like, I'll get you the helmet. And my dad's like, fine, okay, you can have it. But he said it's got to be bright. I've got to be, like you said, right, with the white helmet, you can pick it up anywhere because you're just bobbling around. So funnily enough, like he gave me you can print off this helmet design thing and you can draw it. And I got given a pack of highlighters, the brightest colors in there. So I did all the front in the neon yellow. Again, you have some pictures of that. And that neon yellow stuck with me from my very first paint of the helmet all the way to now. A lot of people think I've got neon yellow to match Vasser Sullivan, but actually it was it was not the case. That was my call. That was my identity. So I guess you could say it was meant to be me ending up here in these colors.
And then in 23, you made up a special helmet that we showcased on air that had some special different parts of it for you, sentimental in a way.
Like I said, I've always stuck with my design, my DNA, and then I hadn't really catered my helmet to a team before, but because it was kind of my colors, I switched it up a little bit and I obviously kept the yellow and then went to black and some of Sully's honeycomb that he loves so much. Got some of that on there, so I mixed it up with a team, and my nickname's Barney, so I got a little Barney on the back. And I remember that my very, very first test with the team, Travis, again, my kind of crew chief.
Travis Morgan.
Yeah, he comes up, big American flag stuck straight on top of it. He was like, oh, we got to be marking our territory. So then with my nickname being Barney on this helmet, I said to him, oh, I'll get it on my new helmet, and I got little Barney the dinosaur waving an American flag on there. So that was kind of where it started, and have that on all my IMSA helmets now. And in that season, this is something that I started doing actually more recently, but when I achieve something great, I want to be able to look back at that when I'm older, and your grandkids, kids, all these kind of stuff, and tell them stories. At the end of that year, obviously, as you said, we had a mega year, myself and Jack, so many podiums, won a lot of races, and I was like, I want to keep this as a memory. So before the last race in Atlanta, I got every member on the team to sign the helmet. I'm pretty sure I got everyone. I hope I got everyone. Because they're all part of it. I couldn't have achieved it without them. And, like I said, when I'm older and I can look back at it and look at all the names and remember those awesome times. And that was part of it. Did it with the IMSA helmet, did it with my helmet that I won Le Mans with last year. And I came second in Bathurst in 2020. I got that one signed too.
When you look at your racing resume and when you conjure up images from Le Mans, does it take on an even greater impact on you today than when it first happened?
Yeah, I think
or do you look at it in a different way?
Le Mans is a tricky one, right? Because you feel so lucky and honored just to take part in the race. For one, it's when you go to sports car racing, I think you know, you think of Le Mans, you think of Daytona, Sebring, these big races. So going to Le Mans was a huge thing. First time I did it was with Brendan Arieb, who we see racing IMSA with the Inception car. You know, it's someone I race with a lot, and was really lucky that he gave me the opportunity and took the chance on me to take me to Le Mans for the first time. So you do the first one and you're like, wow, that's awesome. And then all you want to do is win it. And to win Le Mans is so hard. It's, you know, a lot of it has to choose you. I think the track, I've been in a couple of good positions, and one time a teammate crashed. I crashed myself as well, you know, being completely honest, because you're in the lead and you're winning the greatest race in the world, and, you know, there's no pressure quite like that. And, you know, I got it wrong and then went back the following year. So when I won Le Mans, a lot of it was relief, to be honest, that I kind of put my mistake behind me. And then number two, I think, you know, having a Le Mans trophy with first place on it's something that you can kind of look back at your career, and same with having the IMSA trophy, you know, you can go, wow, I achieved something there. I can be happy with what I've done, you know, and, you know, touch wood, I'm back. I've still got a big box to tick, right? I'm going to go racing again, and I want to make sure I'm as successful and as good as I was before. But, you know, I can look back at it now and go, I've had a great career, and even, you know, I still got a lot more that I want to achieve, but having those couple of big IMSA championship, Le Mans win, you know, that's kind of a big tick for me. And had it been a lot worse, you know, I would have been able to be satisfied with what I'd done.
What was it like to be up on the podium and just the sea of humanity?
Yeah, it's crazy. But being truthful, that's one of the things I love so much about IMSA, right? You go to Le Mans, and Le Mans exceptional, so many fans, you stand on that podium and you see all those people and you're like, wow, this is incredible. But you go to other races in Europe, sports car races, and they don't, you know, you don't get that. There's not that big crowd, especially at Victory Lane, you know, in the podium. There's hardly really ever many people there at all. But when you first come to IMSA, you're like, wow, I'm part of a show, you know, and part of being back, you know, like I'm excited to see the fans again and be a part of that. Because there's every race you go to, there's always a crowd. You know, my first year we go to places like Lime Rock Park and Virginia, which, you know, to me, coming from the UK, they kind of seem somewhat not in the middle of nowhere, but not a lot around, right? No major city. And you go in there and
they're definitely out rural in the country.
But they're packed. I don't understand how it does such a good job of getting the crowds into places like that. And that just makes it all the more special when you achieve a good result, and, you know, you got all the fans there hyping you up, and, you know, being a part of it, they make the experience of IMSA just so good. And I do think IMSA has the best sports car fans in the world.
And you had the appropriate word, experience, because when you have the autograph session and you tell people, oh yeah, they've got an autograph session, you know, every Saturday, you know, everyone's out at the back of their hauler, they've got hero cards, signing. You want to bring something, Lasana? You want to take a picture? Does that ever, when you're sitting there signing for all these kids, because it's amazing to watch and to see just the pure joy of these kids, you know, oh my gosh, I got this guy's autograph, I got that guy's autograph. And to see that pure joy, does it ever conjure up when you were a little kid and you're getting an autograph from Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah. Obviously I'm not Lewis Hamilton for a start, but, you know, not achieved what he has. But I think, you know, it's certainly something that I'm really looking forward to going back and doing, right? When you have some time out, you think, oh, you just missed driving and missed racing. But as I said to you, you know, it's being there with the guys and doing stuff like that and signing stuff. I don't think you quite appreciate what that means to the person on the receiving end of the autograph and how it could influence them. You know, I certainly remember the photo of when I met Lewis at, I think I was 9 or 10 years old there, you know, and how big of a thing that was for me. And, you know, it kind of motivates you and you think, I want to be that guy. And as I said, I'm not Lewis Hamilton, but when I'm looking back now, it definitely does remind me of that moment. And, you know, and having that time to reflect on that journey you go through. You know, you hear so many people say, like, you know, you got to remember it, you got to enjoy the journey. And I feel like having this time out is kind of, almost feels like, you know, one chapter's kind of closing a bit and I'm starting a new one that, you know, you get the time to look back at all that and go like, that was awesome. And if I can sign one autograph that helps someone do that, then it's mission accomplished and I'd be very proud of it.
So you look at your racing career and the number of races, the number of years that you've competed. Any crazy thing that you just can't believe happened? Because I've had people tell me their contact fell out and they had to run an entire stint, you know, basically with one eye because they had one contact in, one out. You know, you've had different parts of the car fall off, you name it.
the one that really stands out for me would be my first Le Mans. It's in the middle of the night. I'd just done a driver change. I was getting in the car after Ollie Milroy, and Ollie kind of blew the box a little bit, went one box too deep. So then, like, all the guys are out of sync, so they have to run, pull him back. I jump in the car, I get in. Again, it's my first Le Mans. I think it was maybe my first night stint. So I get in the car, do your driver change, and we were the very last pit box at Le Mans. And I come out the pit lane, turn the pit limiter off, turn around the right-hander, and the left front wheel just flew straight off. I was like, oh my God, and Le Mans a long lap, you got a long way to go. So anyway, I'm on the radio, lost the left front wheel, and they're like, can you get the car back? Go super slow. So then I'm trundling around at like 50k, 30 mile an hour. And you're going down the Mulsanne, and there's these hypercars just flying past you, like 260, 270 miles an hour. Like, that's the fastest track for them. And that was the scariest, most dangerous thing I've ever done in motorsport, right? Is when I was driving at 30 miles an hour and you've got all those guys flying past you, because in the middle of the night, you're like, are they going to see me? If they're looking down momentarily and they look up and I'm there, it's going to be a massive crash.
I mean, it's like the movie Le Mans with Steve McQueen. All of a sudden you look down, you look back up, and there's a car there.
Exactly. So I was petrified that I was going to be that car, right? So that was number one. And then number two is probably in IMSA in 2023. All we had to do was take the green flag to win the championship at Petit Le Mans, and we wanted to go and win that race. And one of my outlaps pushed a bit too hard and hit a sandbag, completely destroyed the car, and never expected the sandbag to do that much damage. So that was probably the craziest thing, and a little disappointing to end it like that. But
I remember when it came back on the flatbed.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot left of it.
It left a little rough.
Yeah, it did. So John's watching, no more sandbags at Petit Le Mans turn 3, please.
Well, since we're being so reflective and you look back to all your different times behind the wheel, and we always bring up the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. You could sit there and hit play over and over and relive a certain day again and again without Sonny and Cher playing music, obviously. But is there a race that you'd love to go, man, I'd love to experience that again, just like it was new?
Really, really, really hard question, because I've been very fortunate to do a lot of things and experience many, many races, and you can look at that in so many ways. Probably I'd love to relive my first ever win again in a go-kart, just because I think that's where you get a lot of that passion for winning. That, like I said, I was lucky to race against amazing drivers when I was growing up, and I think that first win and getting that feeling of what it feels like, winning a race is so hard to describe to someone. It's like the best adrenaline rush and just rush of emotion through your body that you can ever imagine. So I'd probably love to win my first race again, so I could feel that, and it motivated me probably for my entire career. And on that feeling of nothing beats winning, and I think winning Petit Le Mans in 2022, that was amazing. I
mean, there were so many great storylines that went along with that.
Yeah. Obviously, Jack was coming back from his injury, and that was Jack coming back from his injury was kind of what started our championship campaign. We had a couple of rough races, and we're building all the way through that year. And we get to Petit Le Mans, the team had never won an endurance race before. Lexus had never won an endurance race before. I've just joined IMSA.
You're the new guy.
Yeah, I'm the new guy. It's my dream to come to IMSA and win these big races. And that was we had such a good race. It was, and that last stint when Jack and Jaminet were just smashing the hell out of each other, it was, Jack's move on him was epic. Then Jaminet tried to get him back, got the bumper in, and I think I've got Andrea here with me today off the team, and Pam, they'll remember that, and they can tell you I was in the back of the trailer, arms in the air, couldn't watch it. It was, I was a bit of a nervous wreck, but so excited at the same time. I got such a buzz from watching Jack get that one done, and I think that's probably one that stands out. Even though I got to win Le Mans and a few bits like that, that one, I think winning your first big major sports car race, which Petit Le Mans was, that was incredible.
So we both grew up out in the country. You had 4 acres, I had 10. I got in trouble because we had a Jeep CJ5 with a snow blade on the front. So one day after school, I just made an oval out in the front yard, and that was my go-kart track. But I had Jeeps and growing up and tractors and everything. So it's a little bit different for a lot of kids today that they basically go to, the driver's ed course, they go to DMV, and then they go through that process where we had so many opportunities to drive different things. Yeah.
Well, and even you look at guys coming into racing, they start on simulators now and stuff like that. And I just think you miss all that fun that we used to have, messing around, me on the quad bike, you on the dirt bikes and stuff like that. if I was to have a kid and I wanted him to go racing, that's how I'd be starting him, because I just think you get that such a good feel from a young age for, you sliding around on your dirt oval. Me, it was in my field in my backyard at my parents' house. I think it's, I see myself as very lucky, and it was a big contribution to my skills today.
So one thing I love about IMSA is just the differences in people because of where they grew up, what country they grew up, what continent they grew up in. And also that goes back to their very first road car. And the difference is there. You've got someone who's got a 70 Chevelle, somebody else has got a Mazda 626. Jordan Taylor, it was a Silverado pickup truck. For you, what was your first official road car that you could drive when you were legal?
Yeah, well, kind of in line with Jordan, I guess. I had it was called a Nissan Navara, which is like a smaller pickup truck. Obviously, you guys over here have the huge ones. It wasn't one of those. But yeah, that was my dad's car, and he had that and a van. And then when I passed my test, he was like, he just drove his van everywhere, and I got to have his pickup truck, shared it like between my mom and my dad and myself. And it was a great car. I remember the first day I passed my test, I drove to my best friend Jordan's house. You go and pick him up, you go drive around, and I remember it rained that night, and we're coming home and down some country lane, and I hit the brakes and things just locked up, and so the ABS sucked on it. But at the same time, I also figured out it had no traction control, and you're like, oh wow, this thing's so fun. So I had that for a few months, completely destroyed the diff doing all the wheels.
So you were parking lot ready in the rain. A lot of
exactly, yeah. No, sorry, Mum, again. She probably doesn't know about any of that. I'm sure my dad knew when it broke down, and he's like, oh, what's happened here? But it was that was my first car, and it was fun. Obviously, pickup trucks in the UK aren't really a thing, so I wasn't very cool among my school.
So you weren't a chick magnet, is what you're saying with a pickup truck?
Not one bit. It definitely doesn't have the same effect in the UK as it does over here. But I loved it. Yeah, it's good.
Well, Christmas is always in December, but for you, Christmas is coming in June, getting behind the wheel at Watkins Glen. So appreciate you coming by on the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast and talking a little bit about the past and also looking ahead of the future. And good luck this weekend at Watkins Glen.
No, thanks for having me. It's been awesome. Can't wait to get back. As I said, the IMSA fans are the best. So I think I'm probably a bit more excited to see the IMSA fans than they are to see me. But
so the autograph session will be even more meaningful.
Yeah, exactly. There's not, I said this before, I don't feel like I took my racing for granted at any point. I was always very aware of how lucky I was because of where I've come from and, what sacrifice my parents made for me. But I'm certainly not going to take any lap for granted ever again now. And just so excited to be back and doing what we all get to do in IMSA. It's best racing in the world, and can't wait to be a part of the show again.
All right. Thank you for coming by. Ben Barnicoat, thanks for coming by and being in studio and talk a little bit about Watkins Glen. And besides looking ahead to Watkins Glen, look at the entire IMSA WeatherTech season. For more great content, check out our friends at The Paddock. From This Week in Sports Cars to Double Stint Podcast and the Midweek Motorsports Podcast. All great shows loaded with entertaining and educating content. We appreciate Ben Barnicoat stopping by and being in the house with us, and we appreciate you riding along with us. For the entire IMSA Endurance Hour podcast team, I'm Matt Yocum. We'll see you at the track.